Today, I'm making some lemon blueberry muffins. And these are not your average muffins. These are the kind with that nice crumb topping, bakery style muffins. These are probably my favorite homemade muffins, and that's saying a lot coming from a chocolate lover. Hi, my name's Laura, and I invite you to make yourself at home as I make lemon blueberry muffins. This recipe for lemon blueberry muffins has all the usual suspects for traditional baking. Most everything is going to come completely from your pantry. Obviously, we add in some blueberry and some lemon. And I'm going to use some sourdough discard that you see right here. But never fear, if you don't use sourdough or have it on hand, I will give you the adjustment that you need to make these without it. The first thing I'm going to do is start to work on my crumb topping. The crumb topping is what makes these a bakery style muffin, and it is some extra effort, but in my judgment, it really sets this apart from just the average muffin, and it's so worth the effort. So I take 3 tablespoons of butter and melt it in the microwave, and to that I added half a cup of sugar and half a cup of flour. And once I get those in, I just take a fork and stir everything together to get it all nice and incorporated. That butter is going to soak up into everything else. And just set that aside until you finish the rest of your muffins, and that will create the crumb topping that we'll add at the very end. Now I'm going to get another bowl and begin to work on my wet ingredients. I'm going to start with 1 stick of melted butter, and to that I'm going to add half a cup of sourdough discard. Now, if you do not have sourdough, that's no problem. All you need is an equivalent amount of flour and liquid. I would recommend a 1/4 cup flour and a 1/4 cup milk in this recipe, and that will get you the same results. The only difference will be you may not taste that little bit of sourdough in it that some people do, but you will get an equally great muffin. Next, I'm going to add 2 large eggs. After that, I'll add 3 tablespoons of sour cream. If you prefer or have Greek yogurt that you'd like to use, you can use plain Greek yogurt instead. That'll work just fine. But I have 3 tablespoons of sour cream. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And one little tip that I just learned recently, the cap to the vanilla equals 1 teaspoon. So how brilliant is that? So that completes all of the wet ingredients, at which point you just want to get a whisk and stir everything together nicely and get it all incorporated, and then just set that aside. Now for the dry ingredients. I'm going to begin with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. To that, I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar. Next, I'll add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Next is half a teaspoon of baking soda. Then half a teaspoon of salt. 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. And the zest of 1 lemon. This step of adding lemon zest to the muffins is just going to take the lemon flavor over the top. You can try to replicate this in other ways. You can add lemon juice, but it really doesn't come anywhere close to matching the flavor that you get from this lemon zest. As you can see, I take the lemon and I just roll it around and very gently rub it up against the zester. And I just keep an eye on it because you don't want to go past the white. You just want to get the exterior layer of that lemon zested. And that's going to give you so much wonderful flavor from the natural oils that come from it. Once I get my lemon completely zested, I just take a spoon and stir it in to try and evenly disperse it in the dry ingredients. And then I'm going to add my last ingredient, the blueberries. I took 1 cup of frozen blueberries. You don't have to use frozen, that's just what I happen to have. but you can use fresh by all means if you have that. And just stir those and get them all coated in your flour and dry ingredient mixture. At this point, I take my wet ingredients and pour those in, and I'm just going to begin to mix the two together. As I begin to stir the two together, I want to be fairly gentle and start by folding things more or less. I do this really to try and keep the blueberries from getting too mashed up and discoloring the batter. If that does happen, it's not a big deal. It really just changes the color. It's not going to change the overall taste and flavor of the muffin, but it's really more about the look. Now, I've moved on. I'm going to juice this lemon. I've realized that my batter is a little bit dry, and this will happen on any given day. Some days I've had the batter turn out perfectly, and some days it is a little bit dry. And if that's the case, all you need to do is add just a little bit of liquid. You can add milk or water or lemon juice. I'm using this lemon because it's the one I zested, so I've got it hanging out there on the counter, and it'll just add a little more lemon flavor to the batter, which will be great. But I still need a little more liquid, so all in all, I ended up adding about 3 tablespoons of milk in addition to the juice of 1 lemon. And if you do need to add some liquid, I recommend adding 1 tablespoon at a time and just see where you are with your batter and get it to where it's a nice consistency. You obviously don't want it too wet, but you want it to come together nicely without being too stiff. Now, it is a thick batter, but if it's too stiff to stir easily, just continue to add 1 tablespoon of milk at a time. Okay, now I've got everything nice and incorporated, and I have got my oven preheated to 350 degrees, and now I'm going to begin to fill up my muffin trays. I'm going to leave the recipe in the description box, so if you are interested in making this, you help yourself to it, and I highly recommend it. These are so, so yummy. As you do with most any muffin or cupcake, you want to fill these about 2/3 full. That's going to leave a little extra room for everything to rise nicely. Okay, now I've got my muffin tin filled with the batter, and I'm going to move on to the crumb topping. So at first I use this teaspoon that I had on the counter, and I eventually move on and add some with my hand, just grabbing some with my fingertips, and I felt like that worked a little bit better. But you just want to sprinkle a nice tablespoon or so onto it is what I ended up doing. So each one gets about a tablespoon. And then I go back and just kind of lightly press it. I don't want to press too hard, but just lightly press it into the top of the muffin to make sure it's going to stick. And it does. It bakes right on and comes out so nicely. And it just looks beautiful, and it gives it this great crunch and just makes it not your average muffin. It really takes it over the top. This recipe traditionally makes a dozen muffins, but I typically get a little more than that each time I make this. And as you see, I actually pull out a mini muffin tin, and I end up getting 8 mini muffins out of this, which is great. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she'll eat the big muffin, no problem. But, the mini muffins are kind of fun. At 350 degrees, the bake time on the traditional size muffin is 30 to 35 minutes. Obviously, with these mini muffins, you're not going to go quite as long. I end up baking the large muffins for 29 minutes, and these mini muffins took about 22, 23 minutes, just to give you an idea of the time you're going to need. I like to check my muffins about 5 minutes prior to what a recipe states, and I like to go in with a toothpick. I just pick one of the muffins in the middle of the pan, and just take a toothpick in the center of a muffin. And if it comes out clean, you know they're ready and you can go ahead and pull them out. And if it comes out with a little bit of batter on it, you want to continue to bake them for just a few minutes. I'm getting the crumb topping on the last of my mini muffins, and I'm about to go in the oven with them, and we'll have some breakfast ready in just a little bit. Okay, they have cooked for about 29 minutes, and I just did a toothpick test, and they are ready to come out. Just look at that crumb topping. Okay, I've been to the gym and back, and I have made these muffins, and now I'm ready to dig in. Ooh, take a look at that. That looks so good. Mm. That is worth the effort. That crumb topping, that little crunch on top, and then those blueberries are delicious, but you get that lemon. It's such a good flavor together with the blueberries. Mm. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up so I can sit down with my muffin and coffee. I hope you'll give these muffins a try. They are so delicious. Perfect for any time. The flavors really hit home at springtime. I think we're all getting that taste of spring right now. And if you're not getting warm weather yet, you're hoping for it. So go make these. Enjoy some delicious lemon blueberry muffins. Thank you so much for watching.